All right, guys. Let me get this going. So let me move me here. Basically, we're going to continue on with the fish and shellfish. So this is part 3 of the PowerPoint, and this PowerPoint's from On Cooking. It's a different one. I'll probably throw in some things from the other book that we're using too, but you guys don't have a book anyway. So anywho, let's share screen. So we're going to wrap this up with the original PowerPoint, and then we'll get a little delve deep into it. Okay, so we talked already about the purchasing of fish. You guys saw the live wells. Hold on, it's loading. You saw the tanks. There is a place around here. I wish we could go on a field trip, because I took a field trip last year with the class to this place that they have the live tanks. It's pretty cool. Basically, you go in and you just pick out your fish and tell them, you go through these, like they have this picture up on the wall, and it'll just have numbers on it because, there's a language barrier sometimes. And you just tell them, give me that fish, give me like number 2, and they'll catch the fish with the net, take it out, kill it, and then they cut it up, whatever number you tell them you want. And it's a tank just like that. So it's pretty cool. The only thing is, sometimes when you buy fish out of these tanks, it really depends on how well they keep the tank clean and what they feed the fish. All right. So we're going to watch a couple videos on that. And as far as purchasing fish, you need to keep it refrigerated, or this is how they sell it, so you got the fresh items never been frozen. I think we went over this. Chilled, flash frozen, fancy glazed, other frozen. So the second part of fish, it's a major income source for a lot of people. It's just like raising cows, raising cattle. It's a lot of money. There's a lot of money in it, and people, it depends on how they raise them. Like if you raise a cow and you keep it chained up in a concrete pad, and just feed it some stuff every now and then, versus you let it roam free, grazing on grass and drinking from the creek and all that stuff, it's going to have a different quality of meat. So if you have fish that swims naturally in the ocean in its natural water source, and then you catch it, it's going to taste different from something that's swimming in a stagnant pool where they clean it every now and then. Okay, so it's going to have different tastes. So I want you guys to watch this. This is about sustainable seafood. So sustainability basically means damaged habitat, overfishing, fishing practices, and demand threaten world fish supplies. Chefs can do a number of things to help protect fish supplies. So sustainability means you don't destroy, you don't basically, so what am I looking for? You don't make something extinct. So you want it to be sustainable, so you sustain it for the future. So you don't eat every single tilapia there is, so there's nothing left. You have to do it, sensibly. So I'm going to show you guys these.
If what we really want to do is scale production of seafood, we can't be just solely reliant on wild stocks.
Those are sharks, by the
La
way.
población mundial va creciendo a unos ritmos exagerados y esa proteína sana que es la carne de pescado también tiene que provenir de otras fuentes, y lo que hacemos nosotros es tratar de contribuir ese granito de arena que le ayuda al mar, proveyendo peces sustentables de cultivo.
All right, so I'm going to show you, there's 3 videos. This one is probably the most remarkable video, as far as, like, if you think about in the ocean, they have these giant cages they're going to show you where they can move these around with the ocean current. So the fish are getting fresh water constantly. And there's another video in here, like if you have a giant net, even in the ocean, and you keep it in the same spot, whenever the fish poop, They're just going to sit there on top of their own poop. And especially if there's not a giant current or there's no tide going in right there, because it's never going to go anywhere. And then some people have these fish farms, and there's fish farms in Indiana that it's just these giant aquariums, swimming pool looking things that have millions of fish in it. All right, we're going to keep going. Don't get me going. Don't get me started. Yeah, it says most of them are located there, right near the what do you call it, the beach area, and that is not good. Basically, like having a horde of fish sitting there just pooping, and it's just floating up on the beach.
Our offshore site is about 6 kilometres offshore and about 70 metres deep of water. And at this site we have our pens.
Okay, so offshore have stronger currents to wash away excrement.
I'm a business partner. He was a lot more of a discerning palate than I am. And so it was his job to take these various fish home and sample them. He came back the next morning and he walks into the yard, the tank yard, and he's waving his arms and his eyes are wide like this. He's like, Neil, you're not going to believe it. This fish, this Kampachi, we're going to build the company on this fish. This fish is fantastic. I was like, really? Like, yes, come, let's taste one. So we went over into the tank and scooped another one out and banged it on the head and sliced some sashimi up then and there. And from the very first taste, it was wow.
It's a mix in between the characteristics of a bluefish and a whitefish. So that allows you to be more creative. So you can eat it raw, you can eat it cooked, or you can make a sashimi or a ceviche, and it's a really interesting texture in the mouth. The quality is not something exotic or something necessarily wild. Quality is something that is made and raised with respect.
La mejor cosa de mi trabajo es estar rodeado de la naturaleza, con unas condiciones increíbles para la acuacultura marina. Nosotros estamos en condiciones de mar abierto, donde las corrientes son muy fuertes, las aguas son muy puras y el pescado está en su hábitat natural sin ningún problema de densidades, de contaminaciones.
So basically what he's saying, they have these so far out, they're in 70 meters of water, which is very deep. But the current is constantly going through there. And it's basically like flushing out all the excrement, like it's washing away the poop and it's just going down current. So that's how it should be. And it's what happens is if you have stale water in one spot, you're basically depleting all the nutrients, you know? It's like having 200 kids packed in a classroom for days. The air in here is going to get stale. It's going to stink. It's not going to be a healthy environment at all. It's the same thing in water. So if you have 1 billion fish piled in this little cage and they're breathing in and out the same water constantly, the oxygen level alone is going to be depleted. But then they're just pooping all over each other as well. Where this, it's moving, all right? And you could see the seals floating around there trying to get in the cages because it's just like a giant ball of fish. That's why they're in these steel cages for predatory.
We could produce 100 times the current level of seafood production from offshore aquaculture.
La acuacultura ya supera las cantidades que se pescan en el mar. No sé si vaya a reemplazar todo, pero sí creo que le va a dar un respiro para que el mar vuelva y produzca las cantidades que tenían.
Our relationship with the oceans has not been a happy one. But there is a need for optimism. Let's start to think of solutions. There's that line from the Mary Oliver poem, what will you do with your one wild and precious life? And I like to paraphrase that. What will we do with our one?
All right, so that's one of them. There's another one I couldn't find. I found it a couple of years ago where they had these giant spheres like that have motors on the back of them, and they literally just propel like through the ocean. I don't think they're even propelled by a person, but some of them are just attached to a boat, and they'll drag them around to different places so they don't have the same water. And that's the main part of it. Like, it's just like a fish tank at your house. Like, you have to change the water or it's just going to be stank. So that's the first one. Okay, this.
And that's just basic wavy guy maintenance, right? Next up, Carvana. Oh boy, Carvana.
This one's pretty cool.
Our population is growing. In just 3 decades, we will need 70% more food. Could we feed the world with farmed fish? And what would it taste like?
Does wild fish always taste better than farmed fish? These chefs don't think so. In fact, here on Canary Islands, some of the best restaurants are serving local farmed fish as a delicacy.
Nelson Perez is known in Gran Canaria for his creative seafood dishes.
I've been working with farmed fish for 25 years. In the past, fish that came from farms all tasted the same, be it sea bass or gilthead bream. They all had the same taste and a strong smell of fish oil. But now that's no longer the case. Nowadays, each type of fish has its own proper flavour.
All the dishes for this meal, from the appetizers to the main course, include sea bass. The fish were reared just a few kilometres away at a farm called Aquinaria. The firm says its goal is to produce perfect fish for high-end restaurants.
We believe that starting from the top chef, we will be able to change the perception of the rest of the people that nowadays
Offshore in strong Atlantic, Aquinaria's fish
not be as good as it is.
Thanks to an innovative design, Aquinaria's fish pens are fixed offshore in strong Atlantic currents. This allows for a constant flow of water, enabling the fish to get lots of exercise, improving their well-being and taste.
Normally the weather is quite rough here. We have a lot of currents, strong currents, we have a lot of waves. That means that we need to keep the structures in the place. It means that there is a lot of very sophisticated mooring system, grid system, just to everything connected, so we can really make sure that no matter how big the storm is, we're still in place.
The production is tightly controlled in order to meet strict European food, water, animal health and environmental protection standards. Around 80,000 people across the EU currently work in fish farming. Such jobs, often in remote areas with few opportunities, can be vital. The sector is growing slowly, but the potential is there. Around 2/3 of all seafood consumed in the EU is imported. So could aquaculture eventually provide a sustainable alternative?
We are not interfering with the nature. We cannot over-harvest because we are basically putting our fish here when they are small, we grow them and we harvest them. So it's a closed cycle. So we're not really over-harvesting the fish from the wild.
Aquaculture could become vital in ensuring there is enough food for everyone. Growing population. Research and innovation, part steadily rising for years. And fish farms like this could help to satisfy.
I just really want you guys to see this because you can taste the difference. If you've had, just go to the grocery store. If they have a wild caught salmon, ask for a 6-ounce fillet of it, and then get the neon pink or neon orange stuff of salmon that's farm raised, and smell them side by side, look at them side by side, and then cook them and eat them. You will tell a difference, I promise you. So that's these aqua farms that move, that are stationary with the moving currents. And that was another point that was really good is, you know, with the current moving so much, they have to swim a lot. Like the fish have to keep moving and swimming. And the more they move their muscles, the more flavor they develop and the more better the meat is. Okay. Let's go. I hope they own it. I think
to address the environmental impact of fish farming. Here in the Netherlands, the Kingfish Zeeland farm is pumping clean seawater through a state-of-the-art recirculation system using renewable energy, organic fish feed and 0 antibiotics.
Okay, do you see the big pools? I mean, I guess if they know how to do it properly, it's different, but I've seen these in other countries and they don't pump new water in.
It's an expensive way of growing fish, and their yellowtail kingfish, supply perspective, it's used in Europe.
That's I just want to show you guys that background right there. So this one's probably a little more fancy, but in the European countries, they have very strict guidelines on food. The United States, and we import stuff from other countries that have no guidelines whatsoever on food. So, okay, the last one, which I know this is a lot, I apologize. This is probably one of my favorites. This is about tilapia. This is a little gory, not gory, but it's a little funky. So, I'm warning.
Industrial fish farming, or aquaculture, is the fastest growing form of food production in the world. About half of the world's seafood now comes from fish farms, including in the US, and this is expected to increase, said Dr. Mercola. Already, for the first time in modern history, in 2011 global farmed fish production topped beef production, and the gap widened in 2012 when 66 million tons of farmed fish were produced, compared to 63 million tons of beef. At first glance, farmed fish may seem like a good idea to help protect wild seafood populations from overfishing, while meeting the nutritional needs of an ever-expanding global population. In reality, however, the industry is plagued with many of the same problems surrounding land-based concentrated animal feeding operations, CAFOs, including pollution, disease and inferior nutritional quality. It's getting so bad that fish farms can easily be described as CAFOs of the sea. Here is 6 reasons tilapia farming is dangerous to your health. 1. Recent studies have found that farm-raised tilapia may cause more inflammation. Farm-raised tilapia has always been a popular source for fish, not only because it's widely available in the US, but it's also very inexpensive. However, before you stock up on tilapia, you may want to know about its correlation to inflammation. Recent studies have concluded that eating tilapia may worsen inflammation, that can lead to heart disease, arthritis, asthma and a world of other serious health problems. People who resort to eating more fish as a way to get their dose of omega-3 fatty acids, and lessen their risk of heart attacks, may want to hold off on the tilapia. In fact, a scientist from Wake and systems of other marine...
My main point is, this just keeps going with the same pictures, but wow, there's that guy again. My main point is this: this thing's almost look like it's vomiting something. And you see the color of this. They're not. A lot of these are just not regulated, and they're not healthy. Okay, so that's kind of where I wanted to go with that. I'm not going to get too in depth on this one, just because. So that's sustainability. So in order to keep what we need for the future, we got to sustain it. All right. I know it was a lot, I apologize, but I want you guys to see this. So procedure for scaling fish. Typically when you guys buy fish, they'll be scaled. Unless you're getting whole fish, like you're catching them yourself. But the procedure for it is right here. Place the fish on a work surface in a large sink, grip the fish by the tail, and working from the tail toward the head, because the scales go back. You're just going to go against the grain and rip them out. Don't press too hard because you'll cut through the flesh, and then make sure you rinse this thing off. Skinning the fish fillets, clean the fish off. If you've already scaled it, make sure it's rinsed so you don't get the scales mixed into your meat. And I will show you guys this. It's hard to describe on here, but basically you need a knife that's wider than the fillet you're cutting, and you need a flat, clean surface. And then I'll show you, this is a way to do it, but there's another way. So it's easier to show you a picture of this. Cooking methods for seafood. All cooking methods can be used when cooking fish and shellfish. Seafood is inherently tender. It should be cooked until just done. Overcooking is the most common mistake of preparing seafood.
you struggle to think about like how much plastic is really out there, and it blows me away to just.
Oh, this is so
Welcome to.
I know that we'll get into more cooking. We'll just keep carrying on with this. I know this has already gone for a decent amount of time, so I'll carry the cooking over to another lesson. But anywho, so what I want you guys to get from this whole section is basically like the purchasing of seafood, and as far as sustainability is a really big one. And they have these aquaculture farms. We'll get into more of these with your oysters and mussels and everything else. I really just want to delve into the seafood or the fish part today. Okay. So that's part 3. Then we're going to go keep going in with it for a couple 3 weeks. So this will be fish and shellfish part 3, day 3, homework number 3.